Clay and I want to start today with the news about Elon Musk and Twitter. And I get that about, I don't know, I'd say maybe 5% of our folks listening right now are active Twitter users. It's not that big. It is enormously important to politics, to media, and to the national conversation as a platform. That's just the reality of it. Donald Trump, I believe, used Twitter more effectively than any politician. Donald Trump used Twitter to do an end run on the mainstream media and actually take the fight to the Democrat-aligned corporate media in a way that without that platform would not at the time have been possible. It's one of the reasons they decided to just go for it, kick him off, and make it an all-out censorship situation where they shut down ideas. They shut down the Hunter Biden laptop. My friends, they may have cost Trump re-election, that one platform, because you say, well, I'm not on Twitter. Yeah, but people catch on Twitter and then they post more to Facebook and they see this story and they're aware of it. And other people in the media pick up details and stories and threads from Twitter. It grows out from it. It's the public bulletin board. It is the town hall square or the town square. Same thing. You get what I'm saying. Same idea. I haven't been in a town hall in a while. So, Clay, there's a lot here, but I want everyone to understand, if nothing else, it's just amazing to watch so many people who make a living allegedly in journalism and media and supposedly care about free speech who are in abject meltdown right now, literally shaking because Elon Musk he's not going to suppress the left. He's never said that. He just says free speech might be coming to Twitter and the Democrats panic. We all know why.
This could be, Buck. I woke up this morning, immediately we're text threading. This could be if Elon Musk were able to buy Twitter. This could be the biggest moment for free speech, and I don't think I'm exaggerating this, in most of our lives, in terms of what the impact could be for having someone who was fundamentally committed to the marketplace of ideas, that you should be able to have robust, uninhibited debate, that Twitter is not going to censor you when you have an opinion that may be outside of the mainstream, that Twitter is not going to block you when you say that there's a difference between men and women and that you can't just choose your gender, that we could have inside of Twitter a real, true town square, as you put it. And I understand people out there who say, well, just go sign up for Gab or go sign up for Truth Social or go sign up for Rumble and go sign up for Parler and all these different competing companies. And I give credit to everybody who is trying to compete. But people are not going to, en masse, abandon Twitter and go to a new version of Twitter. It's just not going to happen. Twitter is the place where influence and debate is magnified on an epic scale. So for those of you out there who don't know what's going on, Elon's officially offered $54.20 a share to buy the company. That news came down about 6:30 a.m. This morning. And Elon is obviously the richest man in the world right now. But Twitter stock is now down a little bit on the day, which to me, I had a lot of conversations with people, Buck. They expect for the Twitter board, the people that I talk to reject this offer from Elon Musk. And then we will get into a real battle. Now, maybe Twitter's got some sort of, they call it all the time, a white knight, somebody who's going to ride in and pay more money than Elon Musk offered, get into a bidding war. Somebody else that they like more is offering more substantial dollars. But this is a battle for the ages. I really don't think it's an exaggeration to say that. To your point earlier, Buck, I do believe that Twitter and social media as a group turned the outcome of the 2020 election with what they allowed to be shared and what they allowed to be discussed. I think that social media led to the disastrous lockdown universe that has existed for the last 2 years because they shouted down people like you and me, your kids wearing masks, your kids being out of school. Rather than allow real debate to occur, Twitter consistently puts their finger on the scale and weighs it in the way that they decide is appropriate.
I think there is panic because of exactly what you laid out going forward, that the Democrat left has gotten really used to being able to. And remember, if they just ban, people say, well, you're on Twitter, Buck and Clay are on Twitter, yeah, but the point is, when there's a contentious moment, when there's an election, when it really matters, they throttle you, they suspend you, they shut you down, and that shifts the Overton window. That shifts the conversation nationally because of what is allowable online, right? They want people like you and me with substantial followings that tweet, witty, interesting stuff. They want us using their platform, but they want it to be by their rules in ways that do not go after their sacred cows. Now, there's also the issue of if Elon were, and they're meeting today at 1 Eastern time, the board, I would bet money, and I don't think you and I can't bet because we agree on this one, they're absolutely going to reject it. That alone is fascinating because for a company to reject an offer that would make all the shareholders money and would be backed by the literal richest man in the world shows you how important this is to the left. So for all the people listening who don't use Twitter and are in parts of the country where everyone's like, Twitter, who cares? Let me tell you, this is essential to Biden and Kamala and Pelosi and CNN. Although Clay and I might actually take up a collection today on the street and buy CNN Plus for, a couple of $100 maybe. I mean, everyone's saying CNN Plus is going to be in the auction block here soon too. Anyway, but the part of this that I think could be even more interesting, at least to me, is for years the whole conversation around social media. You and I started doing this roughly around the same time. Let's say 10 plus years ago, right? Being really active on Twitter. Twitter hasn't been around that long. Hasn't been a big thing that long. They used to say we don't suppress conservatives. We just have very basic rules and we apply them equally. Then they said, we make mistakes sometimes. We suppress conservatives, but we don't mean to. It's a free speech platform. And then eventually, when Donald Trump came along, it was, shut up, conservative peasants. We own this. Buy your own, or build your own Twitter. We're maybe buying it. Build your own Twitter. Build your own internet. We're kicking Parler off Amazon Web Services. We're kicking them off the internet, etc., right? If we get access to what I'll call the algo, right, the algorithm, the back end at Twitter, Clay, we would find that they have been shifting the political conversation in favor of Democrats aggressively for the last 10 years. They have been elevating moron blue checks with blue hair, nose rings, and too many cats at the expense of people like you and me that actually have something to say.
Now, I will say the marketplace speaks eventually, which is the great thing about capitalism. And what I do believe is you're right. Twitter, they did the analysis of who spends the most time on Twitter and who's most prominently featured. And Twitter is 20 points more skewed towards the Democratic Party than the United States. So it's like the most left-wing Portland Democrat district that you can imagine. And I will say Democrats have become so enamored of Twitter that they think it's the real world that ultimately I believe that's why their party has gotten destroyed. I think they're leaning into Twitter so aggressively as, this is where the real world is. And that dichotomy between what the Twitter real world represents and what the real world represents is why Joe Biden and the Democrats in general are collapsing, and frankly, why Trump has had so much success. Now, here's the challenge. Over time, Buck, and this is what I worry about, if Facebook and Twitter and probably TikTok, although I don't know enough about TikTok, and Instagram and all of these social media platforms all end up making the exact same decision at the exact same point in time, which is what was so scary to me about Donald Trump getting banned. I mean, they banned him from Pinterest. I don't know if Donald Trump was like trying to sell knitting gear, but I mean, when all the women who sit around and sell, like their latest knit caps are like, there's no way we can have a MAGA cap on Pinterest anymore. Let's ban Donald Trump. It is a collusive, corrosive environment, and what Musk would represent to me is a punch back in the other direction for robust, uninhibited marketplace of ideas.
I think if we got access to the Twitter back end via Elon Musk's takeover, which, to be clear, they're going to circle the wagons. The left, the Democrat Party, this is their digital Waterloo, folks. This is their all-in battle, because if this happens, not only going forward where there'll be an actual digital marketplace of ideas for politics, culture, everything else, but we'll be able to see how much they've essentially rigged the game in the past, including in-kind, what are effectively in-kind donations at election time, what are effectively maneuvers behind the scenes at Twitter to elevate or destroy certain politicians and personalities. Obviously, they banned Trump forever. We know they do this. Obviously, they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop. Clay, I bet it's been much more than that. And then we have to remember Facebook, Google, they have algorithms too. Does anyone think that if we see what's going on at Twitter, it's not going to be clear what's going on at the other tech giants?
I would also point out this. If they turn down what would represent a 20-some-odd% premium for the stock price right now versus what Elon Musk is offering, it's also pretty tangible evidence that Twitter is not being run as a capitalistic venture. That is, they are not trying to maximize return for their shareholders. And by the way, I'm one of the shareholders. I've owned Twitter stock for a long time. They're not trying to get as much money in our pocket. They are an ideologically driven center of thought, not a capitalistic-driven center of thought. And that's a substantial difference, right? It calls into question even more the marketplace of ideas angle, because effectively what they're saying is Twitter is more valuable to the Democrat Party, to left-wing politicians, than to allow it to be purchased by a free speech. And by the way, I don't even think of Elon Musk as a conservative, Buck. I just think of him as a businessman who believes that you have to experience all ideas in order to reach the best possible outcome.
The position of the right is not, well, now let's suppress all the lefties.
That's right.
And kick. No, I want their idiot ideas. I want you to be able to backhand Keith Olbermann, Clay. I just don't want you getting shadow banned when you smoke them online. You know what I mean? I don't want you getting in trouble for it. And that would be the reality we're dealing with here. And I think the fact that Elon he's not a dogmatic conservative at all. He's kind of a free thinker, and all he's saying is let's actually build a free speech platform. And the left is in meltdown. It's so instructive. The left is in meltdown. And get ready for some takes from Washington Post and New York Times writers about billionaires controlling the conversation.
I've already seen that
without any irony.
Yeah. And by the way, the other thing we should mention is just content neutral policies. It's amazing how content neutral policies are that sort of position, right? That you can't even create just content neutral. We're not saying, hey, favor one side or the other. Just treat everybody the same.
Can we come back to this in 1 second, Clay? Because I just saw this. I don't know if you'd already seen this. Breaking news from Charles Gasparino over at Fox News, your colleague there. Elon Musk offers to buy the rest of Twitter. A legal source tells Fox Business that the SEC and the DOJ have launched a joint investigation into a myriad of regulatory issues at Tesla.
Oh, of course.
This is, I mean, I didn't even know this till I said they're going to go with everything they've got, folks. They're going to bring up all the artillery they can. They're going to cheat in every way they can. We'll come back into the ways they're going to try this in a second.
We've had an open invite to Elon Musk to come on the show. How many months now do you think it's been out there, Buck? Now, unlike Dr. Fauci, I'm not sure that we've ever even made contact with someone who could talk to Elon Musk. We need to get Allie in to find out if there's been any response to our emails. But we've been trying, and the offer, I would say, remains. If some of you out there are listening, following along the Twitter battle, and you have a contact with Elon Musk, we'd love to have him on.
He can smoke whatever he wants if he comes on the show. No, we do not judge. He smokes whatever he wants if he comes on the show. That's fine.
If he comes on the show, Buck, I might smoke it with him. So as long as we're in a state where said smoke is legal. Because otherwise I'll probably end up in prison and have the key thrown away. I'll be the first person to be prosecuted aggressively for smoking pot in the history of the Biden administration. By the way, it's funny because the blue checks are up in arms over, oh my God, what if this billionaire ends up buying Twitter? What's going to happen? Well, one of the top Saudi princes in the last half hour has come out against the Elon Musk bid. You might say, well, why does that matter? Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal Al-Saud, whose name I'm sure I just massacred there, is one of Twitter's largest shareholders. So he can vote his shares. If Elon Musk offers $54.20 a share, which he has, he can offer that, reject that offer. So I don't know what percentage effectively he owns, but a lot of these big hedge funds, these big equity holders, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Because, Buck, usually these guys just say, hey, I'm getting a 20% premium on my stock. I'm going to take the 20% premium every time, and I'll take that money and roll it into a new stock holding, especially this year where stock market's down 7-8% if you're a S&P 500 index watcher.
Look, if nothing else, even if Elon if they block this and they are circling the wagons and the DOJ
Yes.
has mobilized, friends, the Biden regime will fight so dirty over this. Imagine Trump comes back on Twitter in time for the midterms. The libs are going to be drowning in their own tears. But, you know, the other part of this, I think, is at least we're seeing, Clay, what a bunch of phonies they are. What a bunch of frauds when it comes to free speech. The New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, you name it. Frauds. They're terrified of what we actually have to say in a free and open debate. Hat tip Charles Gasparino over at Fox News. Twitter is in the red as traders believe Elon Musk's regulatory woes, which were just reported before, will give Twitter, the board, the room to reject his takeover bid. Think about how the system, the apparatus works, friends. Elon is going to buy it. The libs, the left, the Democrats are in a panic. So the Biden DOJ launches a federal investigation of Elon's other company to give the Twitter board an excuse to turn down what's an obviously smart bid for them to take. They play so dirty. They're appalling.
And by the way, that same party is in power, and they know that Twitter will therefore help them to remain in power using the rigged social media algorithms that overwhelmingly favor the Democrat Party. It's a dirty rigged game. It's why Elon needs to win this battle, but it's going to be an ugly one.